Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well and staying safe during this time. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Like I said, thank you so much for checking me out. If you haven't done so, please make sure to hit that subscribe button just right below the video. Cool, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you're returning, welcome back. Thanks again for your support. I truly do appreciate having you here.
Attorney Jeremy Hogan says, and I quote, "The SEC is already dead here," end quote. And that's in regards to a motion yet to be ruled on by the judge. It's the one having to do with a meeting between Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple CEO, and Elad Roisman, who was an SEC commissioner. Of course, commissioners, very important. There's only 5 of them. The commissioners vote on whether or not to bring legal action against businesses or individuals regarding any sort of securities violation. So this is an important individual. Elad Roisman had the meeting in 2018. Well, there were notes taken by a gentleman named Matthew Estabrooks, who worked for the SEC, regarding that meeting. And there were only 2 people speaking, mind you. It wasn't Matthew Estabrooks. He was just taking notes and observing. It was Brad Garlinghouse and Elad Roisman having a conversation. So there are notes from the SEC on this exact meeting. Now, Brad Garlinghouse has publicly stated that during that meeting, Elad Roisman told him that he did not believe that XRP was a security. Very clearly. Now, the SEC, they denied having these notes. They denied that these notes were in existence. Then they were magically found in January of this year. And then, even once they were found, though, the SEC says, well, we're claiming privilege on these notes. We're not going to hand these notes out. Sorry, Ripple, bye. That's basically what they said. Which really grinds my gears, folks. And so we're at the point in this where Ripple's not really thrilled with this. Brad Garlinghouse's attorney not particularly thrilled with this, and I've got a response from yesterday that I'm going to run through with you. But given that I've just caught you up to speed on what's going on here, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to share with you perspective from Attorney Jeremy Hogan and also Attorney John Deaton, because they read this document, and I'm going to share with you what they said, because I've set the table sufficiently where I think I can do it in this order, and then I'm going to go through the note and share with you exactly what was said. It'll tie everything together. But before going any further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Shout out to Attorney James Filan, who shared this document with the entirety of the XRP community all up on the Twitters, and he wrote the following. Hashtag XRP community, hashtag SECverse, hashtag Ripple, hashtag XRP. Brad Garlinghouse files response to the SEC's opposition to Mr. Garlinghouse's motion seeking the disclosure of notes of the November 9th, 2018 meeting between former SEC Commissioner Roisman and Mr. Garlinghouse, known as the Estabrook notes. Because again, it was Matthew Estabrook who took the notes. And so let's go ahead and pull up what John Deaton had to say here. Here we go. He wrote the following. This is potentially huge exculpatory evidence. If these notes are produced and corroborate Brad Garlinghouse's testimony that he left the meeting with Roisman feeling confident that ongoing sales of XRP were not sales of unregistered securities, game over. And so that's what we're waiting to see. Now, the SEC, again, doesn't want to give these notes, claiming privilege despite the fact that Brad Garlinghouse was there for anything that was said. In fact, he did a lot of the talking. And that's why it's so absurd and silly to claim privilege over this. It's like, damn it, bitch, who you trying to fool? Brad Garlinghouse was there for this. If it's privilege, why was he even allowed to be there? And mind you, again, there were only 2 humans talking. Do you see what I'm saying? This makes literally no sense, but this is what they're arguing. Privilege, privilege, privilege. And so why might they be doing that? Well, we'll get into that in a second here, but it is fascinating to see how strongly Attorney John Deaton seems to feel here, because he wrote again, this is potentially huge exculpatory evidence. And so when we're talking about exculpatory evidence, it's the idea of being able to clear somebody of fraud entirely. And in this case, not that fraud was claimed, but just that's the concept behind it. In this case, it's the claims against him as if he did something in an illegal fashion. This would obliterate that. That's what we're talking about here. And so you got to kind of wonder, why is it that these notes, if they don't favor what Garlinghouse is saying here, why hold that back? You know, if the message is made clear that what if he said the opposite? What if he said notes show that he said SEC is a security? You know. It's weird stuff, man. That's why it doesn't make logical sense, but this is what the SEC is doing. So much asshattery everywhere. John Deaton also wrote this. I wrote a thread that said Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson should thank Jay Clayton for suing them and creating a higher burden of proof on the SEC. By suing them individually, the SEC made these notes much more relevant and quite possibly necessary. So think about this. This is why we talked about this concept before. The SEC basically shot themselves in the foot, at least potentially, and there's a very good chance of this. A much higher burden of proof, and it made these notes relevant. If these notes weren't relevant as a result of the claims that the SEC made, then this potentially exculpatory evidence wouldn't ever be seen. And again, it still might not. We don't know for sure what the judge will rule regarding this motion, but the SEC just made this a lot harder for themselves, and they were already in the wrong position. Good luck, SEC attorneys. You're going to need it. And then there was this from attorney Jeremy Hogan in response to this letter. He said, let's step back from the motion and think like a trial lawyer. At trial, Garlinghouse testifies about the meeting with Roisman. There's absolutely no indication that Roisman or Estabrook are disputing what was said. Otherwise, the SEC would gladly produce the notes. So again, there's no indication that the SEC or Estabrook, who took the notes, are disputing what Brad Garlinghouse said. And again, Brad Garlinghouse said that he walked away from the meeting being told by Eli Roisman, commissioner, SEC commissioner, that he didn't believe that SEC was a security. Well, if he doesn't think that, I mean, that's a pretty good reason to feel pretty confident walking out the door after a meeting like that, don't you think? There's only 5 people on the planet that get to vote on such a thing if a claim were to be brought against Ripple on this topic, right? And then Jeremy Hogan continues. Number 2, if Roisman or Estabrook go turncoat, they could testify that Garlinghouse lied about his testimony, and what happens then? That's right. Ripple gets to impeach the heck out of them with the Estabrook notes, which lose DPP privilege. That's deliberative process privilege. I think that's, yeah. Sometimes I know what it stands for, and then sometimes I get a word wrong in my mind. But deliberative process privilege, I believe is it. So it lose that privilege the moment they talk about the meeting, which means that the SEC has no evidence at all about the meeting, but can only argue that Garlinghouse's testimony is self-serving and ... all testimony is self-serving. That's very weak sauce. By which I mean to say, whatever the judge rules, the SEC is already dead here. Ooh, don't mind hearing that one little baby boo bit. So now into the document here. Oh, actually, you know, one more thing. Actually, I will cover one more thing from attorney Jeremy Hogan first. This is short here. Jeremy Hogan has asked, do you still think these notes do not get handed to Ripple? Jeremy Hogan responded, wrote, I think they should, but based on the judge's prior rulings, I don't think they do. but I hope she proves me wrong. So hopefully they do end up getting delivered. The judge is or has, I don't know what stage we're at, I don't recall off the top of my head, but the judge has stated that an in-camera review will be done, meaning in-person review. So an analysis is going to be made regarding the specifics, the contents of the notes, and then we'll see if Ripple gets them and are able to use them at trial. Don't know yet. Really not sure yet. Now here is the letter from the attorneys. It was Matthew Solomon and Noel Bamberger, which reads as follows. This was to Judge Netburn. Defendant Bradley Garlinghouse writes in response to the SEC's opposition to Mr. Garlinghouse's motion seeking the disclosure of notes of a November 9th, 2018 meeting between Commissioner Roisman and Mr. Garlinghouse, which are known as the Estabrook notes. Virtually all of the SEC's opposition is spent trying to equate the Estabrook notes with those taken during a 2019 meeting between a third party, which was SBI Holdings, Inc., and Commissioner Peirce. But the SEC ignores the central reason that Mr. Garlinghouse seeks disclosure of the Estabrook notes. They are likely to corroborate his account of a discussion that he had with a commissioner of the SEC regarding the regulation of digital assets, an issue that goes to the core of the SEC's knowledge or recklessness allegations against him. The SEC is silent on this point, and notably does not dispute its intent at trial to seek to undermine Mr. Garlinghouse's credibility regarding his recollection of that meeting and others. So, folks, think about that. They're noting here, his attorneys are noting here, the SEC isn't claiming that what Mr. Garlinghouse is saying is incorrect. Well, that's kind of telling, isn't it? And then they're comparing the situation with these notes to something that's just unrelated while ignoring what is essentially here. They don't want to get these notes get out, I think, because it probably would, highly likely, I suspect, would corroborate what Bradley Garlinghouse is saying. And then, when it comes to this argument that they must prove, the SEC must prove knowledge or recklessness here regarding these charges, good luck. It's going to be that much harder. Here's the bottom line. I think it's pretty clear, we'd probably all agree here. The SEC doesn't want these notes out because it helps Ripple's case, and it damages the SEC's case. Anyway, this continues. The SEC's argument that Mr. Garlinghouse was present at the meeting and therefore knows what was said there misses the point. The only participants in the meeting were Mr. Garlinghouse and representatives of the SEC. There is no other available evidence that could corroborate Mr. Garlinghouse's recollection that he took comfort from the meeting with Commissioner Roisman. No other evidence. Folks, that's highly important. Then they write, that too distinguishes the SBI notes, as to which the SEC pointed to the availability of alternative evidence, namely SBI's recollection of the meeting. Nor has the SEC borne its burden of proof to show that disclosure of the Estabrook notes would invade the Commission's policy-making process. The SEC broadly and loosely claims that a purpose of the notes was to allow Mr. Estabrook to, quote, provide advice to Commissioner Roisman on a potential future proposal by the Commission of a rule regarding the regulation of digital asset offerings, end quote. And by the way, so I made a video where I talked about this however many days ago it was. It was within the last week or so. And Matthew Estabrook, who took the notes, he signed a sworn affidavit that was one of the purposes of the notes, was to help with potential future decision-making relating to crypto, or something to that effect. And so he's sworn, under penalty of perjury, he's sworn that this is true. So it looks like he's pretty loyal to whoever's at the SEC. I have a hard time believing that could be true, but he's swearing it under penalty of perjury, so it is what it is, right? Anyway, then this continues. But the SEC has never proposed any such rule or even suggested that such a rule was in contemplation. And in any event, that is the same argument this court rejected when it required the production of other notes of meetings with third parties. The only distinction is that these are notes of a meeting with Mr. Garlinghouse, which makes them more relevant and potentially exculpatory, not less, and heightens the justification for requiring their production. Finally, the SEC's attempt to defend its sword and shield tactics is unconvincing. It is plain that the SEC viewed the memorandum to file of Mr. Garlinghouse's 2018 meeting with Chair Clayton as helpful to its case, so it produced it. Folks, see, and I've covered that before on the channel too. What's the functional difference at this point? A meeting, there's notes in the meeting between Garlinghouse and Clayton, separate meeting. Former Chair Jay Clayton, happy to produce that. But this is where they're drawing the line? Because reasons? Does this sound convincing at all? No, and that's what Ripple's attorneys are pointing out here. And so anyway, with the Estabrook notes, also a record of a contemporaneous meeting between a commissioner and Mr. Garlinghouse, the SEC has evidently concluded the document does not support its case, and so it is withholding it. The SEC should not be permitted to engage in such tactics. Mr. Garlinghouse's motion should be granted. And so there you are. That's the latest, folks. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope those notes get in the hands of Ripple, but who knows? Who knows? Most of the stuff that's gone, most of the stuff that's been ruled on over the last year, it's gone in Ripple's favor, which shouldn't be surprising. The SEC with their shady tactics, this and that, and disingenuous arguments, non sequitur logic, all the hypocrisy, shouldn't be surprising that most of everything has gone in favor of Ripple here, but not everything has. And given that, I can't tell you how curious I am about this.
I'm your guy. I will keep you posted. I'm your advocate. I'll be back on a daily basis, usually multiple times per day, with these videos to keep you updated with everything going on. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't done so, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to share any of my videos with your friends, family, social media, or anybody who may care to listen. Thanks so much for your continued support. I'm always here for you. I want to help you through this time. So thank you so much for continuing to choose me. Enjoy your day, stay safe, and I'll catch you again probably in a couple hours. Thanks, everybody. See you later.